What's going on? I just got off a call with a $4 million per month brand, e-commerce brand, and I essentially did a full breakdown audit of their entire Klaviyo account. And today I'm going to be going over that entire thing with you right in front of you in this video. Now, for privacy reasons, I did have to keep a lot of things confidential here. So you're going to see redacted here in a lot of the parts of this audit. I also had to remove a lot of images because they just had the brand's branding. So that stuff's gone, but this is gonna be 100% raw. I'm gonna go through this whole thing with you and show you exactly how I do audits so you can see how to break down your account. And more importantly, you can see the different mistakes that even brands like $4 million a month are making so that you can avoid those mistakes. And most importantly, just learn the way we look at email and SMS marketing on a grand scale so you can make more money from your email list on a monthly basis. All right, so let's jump right into it. First of all, we start with an executive summary. So we found some main findings for their entire audience, and then we had some main findings for just their buyers, and then some other main findings for just the non-buyers. So the main findings for the whole audience here was that the messaging kind of lacked the context from the market research that we actually ran ourselves. We ran a whole market research process for this brand as part of this audit. And the finding from that market research was, like, the main finding of it was not being communicated properly in the actual email content. So that was a really big piece of what we had to fix. Or that was a really big piece of what needs to be fixed as a result of doing this audit. Number two here for the whole audience is that the abandonment flows needed more testing and like high leverage tests that need to be ran on it. And the reason is obviously because we want to see what influences their customers specifically to complete these orders. So from their current revenue of $55,000 in the last 30 days, from their three main abandonment flows, they're adding about, or if we were to add about 0.5% in conversion rate to just the opening emails, that would result in about $10K a month in new revenue, about $94.50 in new revenue per month. So it's adding a nice 1.5% to their total email marketing revenue, just from like some very basic essential flow testing. So that was a nice note. Don't worry, we're getting into even bigger numbers here. So now for the buyers, number one here, new post-purchase upsells are needed. They were not doing very many upsells at all. And the overall messaging will need another update to essentially just make the referral program that they were using more evident and more effective. We also wanted to remove buyer's remorse after the purchases. We also wanted to create upsells post-purchase. Now, the other thing is that the overall creatives are gonna, like, the updating their creatives overall are just going to aid the other points that I just made. So removing buyer's remorse, making the referral program more evident and effective, and making more upsell opportunities after the first purchase. So currently for them right now, their returning customer rate is 17%. And that's based on the email list buyers data. That is not a Shopify statistic. Meaning, like I said here, Shopify is gonna have a more accurate number here, but that's not what, we didn't have access to Shopify for this. We only had access to Klaviyo and then some other program or other platforms that they had, like Attentive for SMS. Now, the goal with the changes to the post-purchase journeys would be to raise that returning, actually, first, let me define what returning customer rate meant for us. Out of all the buyers that they have on their email list, that percentage of 17% is how many of them are repeat buyers. So out of all the buyers, how many have bought more than once, essentially. And our goal here was to raise that to 25%, which would result in about 55,000 new repeat buyers on the email list. Now, at a $30 AOV, I ended up finding out that their AOV was about $40, but at a $30 AOV, average order value, this would unlock $1.65 million in new revenue. And then at an $80 AOV, like I said, theirs was 40, but at 80, this would unlock 4.4 million in new revenue. So this was a massive lever for this brand. Now, moving on to non-buyers, the main findings here. Number one, there was a potential spam issue in the welcome series. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then number two, the initial conversion rate on their welcome series was also extremely low, which is really important because that email is typically the highest grossing email in any account. Their conversion rate here on that opening email is 2.4% in the last 30 days. That should always be at least 4 to 5%. And based on their numbers from the last month, that email alone is leaving upwards of $125,000 a month on the table. All right, so now we're going to dive into the actual categories of this actual audit. So first we got market research. We always start everything that we do. We always start with the customer avatar in mind, because that's the basis of everything that we're doing with our marketing. All right, we need to actually know the market. So we always start with customer research. Now, I can't show you what we pulled for them because it would reveal, a little bit about who they are. But what I can show you, or what I can tell you, is that what we did is we went on their website, we found a ton of reviews, we put them all into Claude, and I actually have other videos on the channel explaining specifically how to do this, but basically gave Claude all their reviews. We asked it to answer some questions that we have about their audience based on those reviews. And then on top of that, we also came up with about 30 email angles from exactly what the people are saying in the reviews. So yeah, that was it. That was what we ran for market research. And just to fill you in, the number one finding from that market research was that people buy their products as gifts. It was almost always being bought as a gift. It wasn't something that people buy for themselves. They're buying it as a gift. And that wasn't really coming through in the messaging in their email content. But yeah, moving on to deliverability. So we were looking at the last 90 days here. Essentially, the campaign open rates were looking good at a 45% average. Just so you know, 40% is kind of like our baseline KPI, key performance indicator for open rates, both campaigns and flows. And then, yeah, I thought the click rates could probably improve here. They're at 0.58% right now. We like to see it at least 0.75%. If it's hanging below that, there's a lot of testing we want to run in order to improve it. And then flow open rates also were looking really good, so all good here. Now, this was their deliverability score. It was 70, which isn't bad. Now, what I mentioned here is pretty important. Klaviyo will make things look a lot worse than they actually are in this deliverability score. And a lot of brand owners don't actually realize this, but as you can see, Klaviyo is taking into account things like click rate, unsubscribe rate, spam complaint rate, which don't actually matter when it comes to deliverability, because if someone's clicking, that means they got the email and they opened it. If someone's unsubscribing or marking it as spam, like those are content issues. These people opened the email and got the email. Deliverability, we're focused on landing in their primary tab or their promotions tab instead of spam. You know what I mean? So like deliverability isn't concerned with things that is only affected by the actual content itself. All right, now moving on to the list audit. This is a really important piece of every audit that we do, but essentially we want to break down the whole state of their email list, to put that very simply. So the first part of that is total active email list, and then we've got engaged all time. So right here you can see that there's a gap of about 370,000 people that are on their list but have never opened or clicked an email even one time. So that's an example of, those are probably 370,000 people that we're paying for in Klaviyo that just aren't even being used. And then you've got engagement. So same kind of category. We like to just look at engaged all time, which we kind of treat as the full list. And then you've got 30-day engaged, which is the same thing, but just people that have engaged in the last 30 days. Then you've got buyership. So it's going to be non-buyers, one-time buyers, and repeat buyers. And then we like to look at buyers that are engaged all time. So this tells us out of all the buyers, how many are actually like on the email list and have actually engaged with our list. Another good one to look at here would be buyers that are engaged in the last 30 days, and then non-buyers that are engaged in the last 30 days. I would encourage you to use those as well. Then we've got the active SMS list. As you can see, really big list this brand is working with, massive list. All right, so the data here told us a few main things. So let me just update that too. So number one, among the people that we can actively market to in the email list, 17% out of all the buyers were choosing to buy more than once. And we covered this in the main findings, but this is the math on that in case you were curious. We already talked about this in the main findings, and we just talked about this just now, so I'm going to move past that. All right, list growth. So they had an opt-in form set up in Attentive, which is also an SMS platform. There was an image of it here, but I removed that because of privacy reasons. But the conversion rate on desktop and mobile was, as you can see here, is 4.4% and then 7.8%. And this brand was running a spin the wheel form, which typically we've found that just brings in terrible quality leads. So we tend to stay away from it. But here's the thing. The spin the wheel form should convert super highly. Like I'm talking at least 10%. And theirs was still like below 8%. So I thought that was kind of telling me we should be testing like a normal offer page, or we should be testing a question page or something like that, just to see if we can get the same conversion rate without bringing in low quality leads that are just trying to get the biggest discount possible from a spin the wheel pop-up. Now, here's some of the other thoughts. I just explained this part to you, but I also just explained this part to you. Okay, this is another nice note here. So after they submit their email, or when they're submitting their email on the wheel spinner, the button says continue. This is kind of like telling people that they have to continue on to the SMS step in order to actually get the discount. So you always want to use wording like submit, not continue. It's a small thing, but it helps conversions. Another quick tip that I'll drop in here that's not actually on the audit is that your no text on your opt-in form should not just be like no thanks. It should be no thanks, I'll pay full price, or no thanks, I'll pay for shipping, or whatever your offer is. Because it kind of like reminds someone that, oh yeah, like why would I pay full price? You know what I mean? All right, now moving on to campaigns. This part was pretty short because this wasn't really the main focus of this audit. The main focus of this audit was on the flows, which we're about to get into. But the schedule for them was about daily, or just under daily. And like I said here, seemed to be a good strategic mix of different segments, but they're primarily focused on their engaged segments, which is, of course, a great thing to be doing. And then all of my notes for the campaign strategy in terms of like what we wanted to update were specific to the creatives, which are in a lower section of this audit. All right, so now we're gonna move on to flows. Like I said earlier, all the images of these emails are gonna be removed, so you guys aren't gonna have that context, but I will kind of like walk you through it. So first series, the welcome series, the opt-in form forces them to go to the email welcome series in order to get the intro offer code, like the actual discount code. It wasn't given to them in the opt-in form. Because of this, you really, really, really want to make sure that this welcome series is performing well and is optimized for conversions, because people have to go there to get the code and make that first purchase. So there's a lot of things that we wanted to test for them there. And as you can see here, we actually created a redesigned version of that email for them, just because, you know, we really wanted to show this brand a lot of value in this audit. And so that were like the main things that I noticed in it. Like they had some banner issues. The overall header section was just like, it was not done very well overall. The presentation of the offer wasn't good either. And then below that, they didn't even have like optimized benefit sections or product sections or anything like that. So that was all stuff that we recommended that they get added in. Now, big thing here is that the opening welcome email actually landed in spam for me, which is like immediately, it's like a big red flag to me. So if you remember, earlier we went over their deliverability, and the deliverability was actually really good. So I was surprised that they landed in spam. But a big reason that probably happened to them is because in their footers, they used no text. So all of their emails are just images, and there's like hardly any text in the footer other than the unsubscribe text. So the reason that's an issue is because when you send emails to people, Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, whatever it is, Hotmail, they have spam filters, and there's something called promotional percentage, all right? Promotional percentage is essentially how much of your email is images versus text. And when you use a big block of text, like 400 to 500 words, which we do, and we put it in our footers, that outweighs the images of the email, and it looks a lot better to the spam filters. So it's something we always incorporate across all of our clients. So yeah, we went over that with them. And then the other thing is that this opening welcome email only had a 47% open rate over the last 90 days, which is super low for an opening welcome email. Yeah. We've even seen this email get 80 to 90% open rates in some cases. I don't think you should expect that ever, but in some cases we've seen that happen. All right, so the other thing that I will mention here, we just talked about this. I had an example of our primary tab footer here. By the way, I've got another video on my channel here about a specific SOP and instructions for how to set up the primary tab footer. So you can just watch that and steal the exact formula for setting it up for your brand. All right. Now, one thing that I will say about the primary tab footer is that it is 400 to 500 words of text, and it's formatted so that the text font is pretty small. But a lot of brand owners don't want to do it because they don't want it to look spammy. But all the text there is specifically about your brand. So if anyone reads it, they're just going to be reading like your brand story, essentially. And it's also extremely worth it if it makes you a lot more money. In this brand's case, that would literally make them an extra $125K a month. Like, I think that you take that trade-off. All right, the other thing was that their welcome email ended in after email number 8, but it was still getting some conversions. So what I recommended for them is to take their best performing evergreen campaign emails and add it to the back end of this flow. The reason being because if a non-buyer is still going to be in this flow and still not make a purchase, we may as well give them our best performing campaign emails at the very end. Next, we have abandonment flows. So the biggest issue in these abandonment flows was that they weren't testing new variables. So this was something that we talked about in the main findings, but we just essentially wanted them to be testing more, like test more like lifestyle images versus just product images, test the timing, test, the actual offers, the timing of the offers. There's a million different things you can test in abandonment flows, but they weren't really doing much of it at all. So that was all really important to us to communicate to them. The other thing is that their browse abandonment flow was only 3 emails. Abandoned cart was only 4 emails, and abandoned checkout was only 4 emails. So because of that, we were pretty adamant on adding to those and spanning each one out to about 5 to 6 emails, especially for a brand of their size. And then we talked about the timing test, which I already spoke to you about. Now we're moving on to post-purchase. So this was a really in-depth part of this overall audit, so I'll try to fly through it and not take too much time here. But let me see here. Yeah, so after email 1 in their first-time buyer series, my recommendation to them was to essentially make one more email specific to the referral program. Because as I mentioned earlier, if you remember, in our market research, we found that people bought their products as gifts all the time. So a really big piece of the post-purchase journey was using that referral offer, which was give 20%, get 20%. Like if you refer a friend and they buy, they get 20% off. You also get 20% off your next order. And so we want to really promote that referral program because if people are getting these as gifts, referring it to someone else is going to be like a very common thing to do. So that was a really big piece of this. And then once they have actually received the product, I wanted to build a separate upsell flow. And so this would be a strategic sequence of upsell emails that essentially softly suggest more of their products that they might like. So this was going through specifically what they had right now. And then their last email was a little bit more of an upsell, but still not quite what I would want to do. But I was essentially just saying here that we want to incorporate more emails like that across the entire flow. Now, that upsell flow could be 5 to 6 emails long, but really important caveat here is that I wouldn't start it until they've had the product for at least a week. You do not want to be like hard selling people again when they just bought and they're like either still waiting on their product or they just got it. That really pisses people off, and we've seen it firsthand from our customer service reps at e-commerce brands. They've shown us like people giving them feedback, and they hate getting marketed to when they're still waiting for a product or when they just got the product. Like they want to see results first. All right, now the opening email of the first time buyer series, I was kind of mentioning here that the copy should be more focused on removing buyer's remorse, which we like to do through social proof and reinforcing the benefits of the products that they bought. So you can make it from the founder in like a very personal plain text email if you want. We always add reviews with stories and images of the reviews if they have those. So a lot of brands only think of using reviews as a way to get people to buy. We get them, or we use them also in post-purchase to reinforce that buying decision and make people like feel happy that they made the decision that they made because they're seeing the results that other people are getting with their products. And then the other thing was just reinforce the bullet point benefits of the products because, like I said before, you just want to reinforce in their mind that they made a good decision. The other thing here is that in that personal opening welcome email after they make the purchase, we want to flow naturally into the referral program so that they know, like you can get 20% off your next one and give that to your friend if that's something you want to do. And we just, like, while we have their attention right after they make a purchase, it's a good time to slide that in and put it so that's top of mind for them. And then not only for their first time buyer series, but for all flows, the messaging should be focused on gift giving. Like I said earlier, that was a massive takeaway from the market research portion of the audit, and it was simply not being communicated in these flows at all. All right, so like I said, the main takeaways here were build that separate upsell flow and add more referral program specific emails. Now, repeat buyer series, this email one, you guys can't see it, but it did a better job of selling the referral program in my opinion. Now, email one for them, so they split out the repeat buyer series to 2-time buyers and then 3-time plus buyers. And the 3-time plus buyers had a mention of a 20% off coupon, but there was no button or code. I was 99% sure, and I ended up being correct, that it was referring to the referral program, but it simply made no sense. They acted like they were giving a 20% off coupon, and there was just like no code or button for it. And they didn't mention that it was the referral program. So when you're doing these offers, you want to make sure that your messaging, it's really easy to mess that up. You want to make sure your messaging is like making sense and making it very clear what the actual offer is and how they can take action on it. You guys can't see email 2 here. The other thing here was in emails 3 and 4, they offered 10% off to these people. Keep in mind, this is a repeat buyer series. And I was asking them, what's the rationale for giving the repeat buyers 10% off? Because at this point in the buying journey, they've proven to us that they buy because they're liking the products. It's not just because of some discount. They bought multiple times, which tells me they enjoy the products. So at this point, I'm not giving them any more handout discounts because they enjoy the products. They should keep buying if they like the products. All right, so speaking of continuing to buy, they eventually would get into the VIP flow, and that's what we audited next. So email 2 of this flow, kind of like the same vibe as the last one, it also gave them 20% off. So, like I was just telling you guys, personally, I've always told brand owners that if we want to do a thank you to VIP customers, it should be a free small item. The founder of this $4 million a month company completely agreed with me on this as well. A free small item, free shipping, or something along those lines. We have one client right now that does about $1 million a month, and something we're adding for them is complimentary branded Stanley mugs. So like that was something that we're going to give to the VIPs to thank them for being a part of our brand for so long. Then another general note for VIP flows, our main goal here is usually just to reinforce what they already love about our brand, but also get them to refer us to their friends and family. So because of that, we want to make sure that the referral program offer is right in front of them and that we give them a lot of opportunities to take action on it, which they weren't doing at all in this VIP flow. The other thing I mentioned here is that we could separate the VIPs out as a separate segment in each campaign. So essentially in each campaign that they send, which like I said earlier is almost daily, you would duplicate that campaign and send it only to VIPs, and then of course exclude the VIPs from the original campaign, and then highlight the referral offer in like the bottom of each of those emails specific for the VIPs, because they're more likely to take action on it because they've bought from us so many times already. Like, because they've bought so many times, they're much more likely to refer us to their friends or family. All right, brand loyalty. So this was a short flow that they had for people after they make their first purchase, essentially just to like keep people involved with their brand and their blog and social medias and everything like that. So I didn't spend too much time here, but if I said that if we want to take this flow more seriously, I don't see a reason not to stretch it out to 4 to 5 emails. At the time of me doing the audit, it was only 2 emails. All right, re-engagement flow. So this is kind of like sunset unengaged, if you've heard me call this that name. But the structure of the flow is good. It was 3 emails attempting to re-engage the subscribers, but I thought the content could be improved heavily. Their open rates across these 3 emails went 19%, 5%, and 3%. As I was going over the audit, the manager of the team went in and shut these emails off immediately because she didn't realize open rates like that will kill your sender reputation. You do not want to be getting 5% and 3% open rates. Another really big thing here is that we do expect open rates to be low in this flow because it's for unengaged people. Like, of course they're going to be lower, but anything below 10% is telling me that either the subject line and preview text really needs to improve, or we're just not delivering to these people. And then regarding the content here, we always, probably like very rarely will put a design email in these re-engagement flows. It's almost always plain text though, because plain text is gonna deliver better, and it's also coming across as like a very personal message from us to them. And they weren't doing that. They were all just like basic design emails that weren't even focused on re-engaging the customer. Now, customer win back, this was very similar notes to the re-engagement flow, but I just thought the content could do a much better job of actually conveying the message. So email 1 here was about their secret to comfort. I don't see why that would be the focus when you're trying to win back a customer. The main message of all this was, why not make the focus of each of these pieces of content on the reasons someone would not buy again? Like, those are the things we want to attack here, not some like small little catchy headline that doesn't really engage anybody. All right, then they had an anniversary flow. So the only note here was that the thank you 20% off offer was in email 2, and I recommended that they put that in email 1 because in email 1 they were thanking them for being, or like they're saying like it's been 1 year since your first purchase. You may as well put the offer where all the attention is, which is on that first one. The second one has way less attention on it. Email 1 was then just a graphic saying 1 year. And like I said, it's a really good opportunity to get more personal and thank them for being a big part of the community that they've built, and just explain like how glad they are to be a part of their life using the products. And then this was another note I had here on the anniversary flow is I would consider branching it out based on if they had purchased within, let's say, 30 days, within 30 days of that 1 year anniversary. That way it'd be positioned differently. It could be like as long as 180 days even. That way you position it differently for people that purchased again versus people that haven't purchased in that last year, because those people should be treated differently. And then they had a rewards points reminder flow. I had no notes there. It was just a simple email. All right, next for creatives. We're going to be skipping the creatives part because I couldn't really show you it without showing you their actual creatives. So we're going to skip straight to SMS. Now, there were only one thing that I noticed in their SMS that I'm going to go over here, and it was their abandoned checkout timing. Essentially, the abandoned cart flow was beating the metrics on the abandoned checkout flow despite sending to a lower intent audience, which is natural because it's added to cart versus abandoned checkout. And the abandoned checkout flow had a discounted offer in it, and the abandoned cart didn't, but the abandoned cart was still beating it. And the reason was because the added to cart, or the abandoned cart flow had a 20-minute delay before they got that SMS, and the abandoned checkout flow had a 24-hour delay before they got the SMS, which I think was a massive mistake on the company's part. We ended up talking about it, and they explained that they wanted those people to get converted by the emails in that first 24 hours rather than getting the SMS. That's probably something we'll end up testing with them, because I think moving that to more like 20 to 30 minutes for the SMS is going to help them out a lot in terms of the conversion rate on this SMS. But other than that, I had no comments on their SMS. There's a really high volume on their SMS campaign strategy. It was performing well. All the flows were set up and running. It all looked good to me. Now, goals and takeaways. I'm going to skip past this part because we kind of just covered everything together right there, but this is also pretty much the same thing that was covered in the main findings that we went over at the start. So yeah, that's about the entire audit for them. Offer. This is actually for you. So if you run an e-commerce brand, I would love to help you guys make more money from your email list. So what I'm going to do is the first link in the description is my calendar link. You can book a call with me, and we're going to talk about what you're currently doing for your email marketing, what your strategy looks like, what the team looks like, if it's successful or not, what your goals are with it, etc. And then if I think we can help, I'm going to dive in, do a full audit for your brand, just like I showed you in this video. Now, I'm not going to promise an audit this in-depth for you specifically, but what I can promise is that we're going to find and pinpoint the actual issues within your strategy and find out what we can do to fix those things, and most importantly, just make you guys more money on a recurring basis from your email list. So hit that link, first link in the description, book a call with me, and I look forward to making your brand a lot more money. Talk soon.